thought it might help if I read to you an open letter that I've addressed to the leaders of the Lgbtqi+ community. As you know, I'm a very ardent supporter of the work of inclusivity. Dearest, most highly esteemed and honourable leaders of the Lgbtqi+ community, I don't think I represent a minority viewpoint when I state that you have done a fantastic job in bringing people together to form a tight-knit and empowered community. Whilst many foolish and self-interested types have been focused on archaic commonalities of class, ethnicity, or shared moral values, you've had the insight to pinpoint the most truly unifying and most definitive characteristics that make a people and a community. Of course, I'm referring to the characteristics that define an individual based on their sex and gender, which you wisely observe are two distinct properties. Finally, I see people with the courage to stand up to the millennia-old bigotry of religious texts, to the centuries-old childish assumptions of anatomy and biology. You also wisely define people based on the characteristics of who they are attracted to sexually. What greater demonstration of someone's character could there be? And it would be amiss of me not to mention and commend you on bringing about this most healthy and organic readjustment in the focus of the psyche of contemporary people without causing any unnecessary division in family or community. That is to say, bravo for fostering an environment of inclusivity. However, I do have an ulterior motive behind this communication. Besides echoing a near universally felt congratulations for definitely helping families and communities to come together in what are very trying times, that motive is that I see, despite your truly honourable and heroic efforts, there is one group of people who have been, so to say, left out in the cold. I find it quite remarkable that this group of people, correctly categorized by their most defining feature, namely, who or what they are ultimately attracted to, have for so long gone unnoticed. They are everywhere, yet tragically it seems nowhere in view. They might be your brother or your sister, your aunt or your uncle, or your niece or your nephew. They might be rich or poor, academically inclined, or a blue-collar worker. They fall on all sides of the political spectrum. They might be married or single, with or without children. They might be religious or atheistic. They might be artistic in temperament or more intellectually focused. I know these are all very minor characteristics that don't really go any ways to defining the aforementioned and ultimate properties of an individual. Said properties, which somehow simultaneously afford an individual with a cherished identity within the highly inclusive Lgbtqi+ community, without causing any unwanted or negative side effects to the broader community, namely society at large. In order to include these unfortunate unseen, differently attracted people, a much needed identity within your community, I suggest you add an S to your already cumbersome name. Now, I do already anticipate your most natural reaction to my suggestion at this moment. Let me assure you that this reaction of yours is warranted and definitely does not diminish your objectively already well-established standing as fosterers of inclusivity for the ultimate benefit of the broader community. That is to say, don't worry, the S does not stand for straight. Obviously, heterosexuals enjoy a host of protections from your tight-knit community, without which they would have no way of providing for their families or even reproducing in an organic fashion. No, the S I am suggesting you include is a designation for state-attracted people. Like I said, these, up until now, identityless people are most accurately defined as those whose primary attraction is to the state itself, gladly foregoing the benefits of directly participating in the antiquated community in which they live. These state-attracted people only feel completion when they are bonded to the state itself. This can manifest in many ways. There are the obvious types, directly employed by the state, in federal, state, or local government, but there are a great many others whose true identity all too readily goes unacknowledged. There are those that contract with the state. They can appear in almost any industry. Generally, they do not participate directly with the community because they are aware that they would have to work harder and with less security. Without direct accountability to the community, they are free to profiteer to their heart's content, as there is no direct connection between them and their payer. Their payer and one true love is the state, which derives its fund not through any kind of labours or voluntary sufferings, but rather through a peculiar form of coercion, known conventionally as taxation. Ultimately, they are more attracted to what they call money than to antiquated notions of honour or valour, or the tired notion of loving thy neighbour. Then there are those folks who choose only to work under the protection of a strong and powerful workers' union. Whilst for these state-attracted types, the affection for the state is more obscured, it is nonetheless obvious if we turn our attention to them. They too are very aware that, were it not for the protection afforded by a union, working hand in hand with government, enabling them to bypass a direct relationship with their community, they'd have to work a lot harder and would have less security. Again, this group forms part of the larger group of state-attracted people. Best defined as such because they are most strongly attracted to the state and the money it offers them. There exist a great many more subgroups of these state-attracted people. I won't waste your time in describing them all in great detail, but suffice it will to mention some by name. Policy enforcers, armed forces, firefighters, public school teachers, hospital workers, council workers, semi-government department workers such as postal service employees, WorkSafe employees, Vic Roads employees, Victorian Building Authority employees. Note that these last two examples are specific to Victoria, but each state and territory has its own equivalents. Employees of the courts and tribunals, Fair Work Australia, Australian Taxation Office, ACCC, and ASIC. The list goes on and on. The thing that all these state-attracted people have in common is that they all feel most comfortable when engaging in the task of providing the means for their existence, or if you will, generating an income, to primarily engage with the state. Ideally for many, it is to only engage with the state. However, as this is unattainable for most, and inevitably some community interaction is required, they do so either as a representative of the state or with the authority of the state. Thus they are engaging with the community, not as their naked selves, but through a specific role generated for them by the state. State-attracted people are also distinguishable from others in their peculiar attitudes towards wealth and family life. State-attracted people do not see as integral the roles of the father or the mother, in terms of maintaining wealth in an estate, or in terms of providing positive examples for the rising generations as a means of indicating appropriate or beneficial behaviours and principles to live by. In short, they are your greatest allies. They are most comfortable with the knowledge that the state is handling these affairs for them, educating their children in how to think and feel, and in handling their financial affairs, including their retirement and their children's inheritance. They're perfectly satisfied with the state deciding their own family matters through the family court system. In terms of healthcare, these uniquely attracted individuals are also most content with the state deciding for them which forms of treatment are legitimate and which medicines to take and at what intervals. Though these people may indeed consult with an individual doctor or physician, they rest assured knowing that this individual healthcare professional also has as his or her or their primary localization of engagement with the state itself, so they won't be led astray. All of these bizarre behaviors they carry out diligently because the attraction to the state is so strong. They gladly look the other way whilst the state pillages the resources of the broader community. That is to say, even though the state has offshored manufacturing and textiles, privatized all public assets, sold off land and titles registry, put up barriers to access to land belonging to the people, persisted with irresponsible monetary and fiscal policy, and made terms of trade nearly impossible for domestic producers of anything to survive, let alone to compete and thrive, literally selling out the ground beneath the people's feet. These people are so compulsively attracted to the state, they do not question the relationship. Neither does it concern these individuals that the state is implementing digital and biometric identity certificates, which will be required in order to gain the right to participate in economic activity via a central bank digital currency, or to rent a property to live in. Even when the state is demanding complete slavery, the state-attracted individual is powerless to do otherwise. In conclusion, clearly we can say that objectively this compulsive behavior indicates an infatuation on the part of the state-attracted people. That is their most defining characteristic. It would be remiss of you, most highly esteemed and honourable leaders of the Lgbtqi+ community, not to make room in your already crowded name, for the sake of inclusivity, for the letter S, but more importantly, for the minority group, for which it signifies a much needed recognition of their identity. Yours faithfully, a concerned observer.